Okay, this is very hard. It's always hard to start. There's so much pain and vulnerability, and I need to bring it into myself. That's the best I'd like move. Always bring it back to myself. Bringing it back to myself. Bringing it back to myself. Bringing it back to myself. There's so much pain, and I've been carrying it for decades. And again, even as I think of the things, it's like I can't share this publicly. I can't share these things publicly. But I sort of feel I need to get out of the way before I go into the video. Whatever, fucking deal with it. Deal with it. I don't owe you any. So it's like a personal whatever, and then I'll deal with the whatever. I'm living in a very difficult situation. And I'm afraid to say it out loud. Wow, it's amazing. I don't know. Do I say it out loud? It's amazing. It's amazing. I thought I could say at least generalities. I don't feel safe. God, I need help. I don't feel safe. No, what a waste. I can't even talk about what I want to talk about.
A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, taught me many years ago. He said, the purpose of art is to instruct and to inspire. Well, that helped me explain to myself why I hated so much modern art, so much art that isn't even so modern, because it does the opposite of instruct and inspire. It actually says nothing. It has a depressing message. It has a message that life is hopeless, life is meaningless. It reflects the misery of the world. It reflects the horrible conflict of the world, but it does nothing to rise above it. It does nothing to give people a new way, a new idea, to give people real hope, not dissociative hope that tells people that life is hopeless, life is pointless, life is meaningless. And sometimes people feel good about that because it doesn't challenge them. Sometimes I think most people actually, I think they like art that doesn't challenge them, that just tells them that the misery that you see in your life, that you feel in your life, your lack of growth, your lack of insight, your lack of struggle to become real, that's okay. That's inevitable because the great art, it also reflects this. Well, I reject that art. I don't like that art. To me, it isn't really even art. It's just technique. It's just fakeness. It's just garbage. And sometimes what I see is the most modern art, the most lauded art, the most expensive art nowadays is the worst. And probably no surprise, actually, because if it's expensive, that means that people like it the most. There's a market for it. And it reflects that most people are incredibly lost. Most people in this world are so screwed up. And they don't want to pay money for something that challenges them, that tells them that their life is totally on the wrong track and backwards. They don't want to have to look at some art on the wall.
So I have commentary about this and disagreement, but it doesn't matter. But what I will say is this reminds me of the prophets of old in the Bible and in general. People don't like being told what they're doing is wrong, and I don't like it either. I don't like being told what I'm doing is wrong. And sometimes I feel a crushing, like a devastation. My identity has been publicly pulverized. So what you're doing is wrong, or somebody doesn't accept my opinion of things. But I feel like I have an understanding that that doesn't mean that you don't ruin people over it. And it seems to me there's a whole host. I don't know if it's a majority, but there are people that if you tell them they're wrong, they get vindictive and then they set out to ruin your life. And I don't think I do that. Pretty sure, like, that's not. I have an awareness that somebody's telling. I get hurt. I get devastated. I get angry at them. I want to, punish them, but I also ask myself, is what they're saying does what they're saying have any truth to it? So I fancy myself someone that likes to be challenged, likes to be told where they're doing things wrong, because that's how you grow. Even if it devastates me, even if it's cruel and heartless and cold or whatever, sort of like the truth the truth shall set you free type of idea. There's one thing I will say that I like about Daniel Mackler is he's very judgmental, and I love that about him. It's so hard to find people on that aren't judgmental with a toxic positivity crap. So I like that he makes claims and like this art's stupid and the world's dumb and people don't want good art, and I like that. he's not, like you sometimes you've got these like people on your shoulder talking to you, telling you, and there's the like, I don't know, like 80% of the whatever, a lot of people, they'll try and tell you don't be judgmental, but I think that's a strength. This is my philosophy. You call something, you call a spade, you stake your claim, and then somebody debunks it, and then you change your opinion if you're convinced. So I like that he's like, especially with art, he could like, so the relativists drive me crazy. Oh, how can you make judgments about art? He doesn't even care. He's not even talking about whether or not he has the ability to judge good art. He's not even doing that. He's just making a claim there's bad art. So it's refreshing, and I really like that. But yeah, people like, there's a saying where a prophet isn't welcome in his own town, and there's also where if you speak the truth before the majority is ready for it, you get killed, annihilated. There's an unconscious murder of you by the collective.
Or listen to video art that tells them you're screwing up, you have it backwards, you're not even facing the most important things, you don't know yourself at all. And in that way, I consider these videos one of my basic forms of art. This is my art. In a strange way, yes, it is art. I mean, it's me sitting in front of a camera just talking extemporaneously with no...
So I love the word extemporaneously, and I love that he used it accurately. It's rare you get that word in sentences, so that made me happy. And I do like the idea of expressing yourself as a form of art. You could say he's pushing it a little bit. I mean, is this really art? Like, you could say, wow, he's pretty full of himself if he thinks this is art. But to speak to the expression element of it, that is art. I don't really like the definition he gave at the beginning. I like, art is an expression of creativity where you want to share your creativity with the world, with people. And I don't know if it has to inspire or it doesn't. Like, if it doesn't inspire someone, then whatever. Like, I have I think I have a different concept of art. Or like, it does it have to be uplifting? I don't think it does. Like, I like dark art and uplifting art. Like, basically art that moves you, or art like, and that could be moving you into quote unquote, I don't know about the duality, but darkness or quote unquote lightness. Like, art that just moves you or hits you or strikes you or rearranges your perspective, like anything, like, so makes you happy, makes you want to move, makes you cry, makes you angry, makes you, now, I mean, I guess there's a like disgusted or revolted or grossed out. I guess there is some type of art that I actually would think that it's not art. So I'll do the Daniel harsh, the harsh judgment. Some things aren't art. Some things are like, I don't even want to say the words out loud, but there's crap that, not demonic, but just, and I don't believe in evil, but poetically, not good. Poetically evil.
Preparation, no script, no plan. But in a way, I'm opening up a vein and letting out truth and sharing it in a very, very direct medium. This video, I don't need to paint abstract things. In fact, all this abstraction takes away from what I consider to be the most important thing. The truth about growing and healing from trauma. Sometimes I think,
I don't know what he's saying about abstract there, but I love abstract is great. I love realism, abstract. I mean, it's almost like he's got a bit of agenda here when it comes to art.
maybe this is the clearest way to do art. Writing, also writing. But I think also sometimes writing doesn't necessarily capture the spontaneity and the passion that video allows. The truth of the face, the truth of
Spontaneity, yes. Uh, when you're talking about the truth of the face, I am thinking about starting a whole thread on the COVID religion and the COVID lockdowns so that I don't go crazy. Because I feel that's one of the biggest traumas in my life, compounding on my earlier life. And now there's a memory holing and just so like there are so many topics with the COVID religion and lockdown. And I want to chronicle all the horror and all the lies and all the psyop. And so, the showing of the face is very important psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. Like, it's in our language. Don't show your face around here. You know, when you're ashamed, you hide your face. If you're a criminal, you hide your face because you don't want to be identified. There's so much about showing your face. And I play poker, and when people are hiding their face in poker, I think they're cheating. I don't know why that's allowed. I play poker with my brother. He doesn't have a problem with hiding your face. But to me, it's like, I don't know, like the other thing about showing your face is we need to know how much the people we're interacting with are lying. And I know that sounds like I'm stating that from a negative place, but it's whatever. It's sort of positive, it's sort of negative. Like one of the reasons why we need to see each other's faces is because we need to detect how honest other people are being. It's important. And yeah, so I could go on about showing your face versus hiding it.
my insecurities and confusions and the baubles in my voice, the errors, the anxiety sometimes that comes through, and the confidence, the hope, because I do want to inspire. I don't want to share a hopeless message. I mean, yes, I don't want to deny that the world is a complete and absolute mess in so many ways, that the world, by and large, the mess that humans have created, our species as a whole, is crazy, is very, very, very lost, is very much off the track. I don't want to hide that. I don't want to pretend it's anything other than what it is, that the norm is nuts, that my family system is very confused and very sick, and that the
Okay, so one of my main pet peeves / critiques, I've shared a few in it, but I do not like he's framing it as the family system. It's like he's so angry at what his parents did. He wants to like reduce the family by reframing it as a family system. sort of like, I remember the first time I heard systemic and I just wanted to puke. The family system is a way to destroy the idea of the family, which is just so it's just so gross. I am not like it's just that's probably in terms of like yeah, that's probably one of my main critiques. Don't call it a fucking family system. Call it your the family. Um, it's like he wants to divorce himself from the reality of what it is to be human and how he got here. He wants to divorce himself from his past. He wants to color the family as a in other as a conspiracy, and I just it's to me it's a fundamentally wrong pre presupposition. He's creating a presupposition that's fundamentally wrong in my worldview.
Parts of
And that's okay. So I can see like that's not to say like I am for breaking from your family. So people might confuse that part with yeah. If you got to break from your family, break from it, but don't call it a family system. Just say I broke from my family. I have no contact with them.
them that I took inside of myself as a child to survive in their world, under their dominion, under their power, in the society that they created and the greater society that they prepared me for, those parts of their sick self that I took inside of myself and modeled parts of myself after, those parts are sick. There is no hope in that. But that I can look at that. I can see it for what it is. And I can do a lot in my life to transform it. That is the inspiration that I wish to share. And the reason it's inspiring, I believe the message that I have is inspiring, that I know it's inspiring, is because I have done it. I've already done it so much.
So when I was watching this is the part where I perked up, which is interesting because he's talking about inspiring and giving true hope. And I just thought, you know, well, what if there isn't hope and blah, blah, blah. But the reason I mean, I'm attracted is because of the hope. So, yeah, I guess. I mean, for a lot of like, I have abandoned the idea of hope early on because it just seemed a tragic lie to hold hope. And anybody that's like it's like hanging on by a string, but that string isn't real. Like you're hanging on by a thread, but the thread is a figment of your imagination. So hope is just like poetically evil. But that being said, I mean, you know, I it's weird. It does sound like a contradiction, but I come to these modelings um, for hope that I don't know anybody that's done this. I don't know. I don't have a model of a success. And so it's one thing to say, work on your inner child and grieve all your trauma. But if there's no model of success for hope of doing it, then it's hard to know whether or not it's a good idea. Not that I even have a choice anyway. I feel so much of this now I have no choice. So let me just succinct. Hope is obviously important to me because I perked up and I started opening up. I felt myself starting to open up when he said, I've done the work because I trust him to an extent. The reason I trust him is because he understands trauma and inner child and parents ruining you. And, leaving your, I trust him because it's a hard path. He's not, so he's trustworthy. So I listen to him when he says, I've done it. Now, maybe like he's also he's not always ever fully complete. And I'm not here to nitpick, like, but he's saying sufficiently. He's sufficiently proven, right, that it's worked, and that's hope. And I don't know anybody where it's worked, where there's an example, where there's a model. And I find myself opening up. So I open up to the possibility that maybe I can grieve my life and my childhood. I found myself opening up, and I was not going to do. I had like 10 other ideas of videos, and I just picked one. I just picked it came up on and I'm like, it's like Daniel Mackler. It's like you just pick one and you're going to find gems, generally speaking. And it's not going to be where you think it's going to go. He is saying it's possible. And I am believing him. And that's where this is what like I feel the ancient like flags, red flags don't have hope, David, because that's a lie, and you'll just get even more full of despair. But he's saying it's possible, and I'm believing him. I'm just being honest. He's saying it's possible. I'm believing him, and I start to open up to the possibility.
I have transformed so profound.
And I know the charlatans, right? This is why reading people's faces is so important. There are people that are very good liars, and there are millions of people to claim that they've transformed, that they've figured it out, and they're all charlatans and liars and hucksters.
And I watched myself do it, and I saw how it happened, and I saw what I did, and it is still.
But this guy isn't, and it's you got to be careful. Like, it's hard. I can't think of someone where I'm positive that they're not lying. It's so rare, especially in virtual world. This guy's not lying here.
Still going on. It's an ongoing process inside of myself. A huge amount of my inner self has already converted. And it's that part of me that is sharing this message, but is also watching myself and is watching the parts of myself that are still stuck, that are still lost, still confused, still immature, still beholden to the ideals of the family system, still hoping for rescue from sick parents and a.
Yeah, so basically every time he says family system, I want to punch him in the face. Just stop doing that. So I'm not going to keep bringing that up, but it's always going to be triggering me.
Sick society of parents and a whole world that's just like them, that will never rescue me and will never save me. And I see that inside of.
So my personal struggle, and this is one of the main things that Daniel's teaching me, if not the main thing, and it's just I need it drilled in over and over, is like nobody's going to save me. Nobody's going to swoop in and rescue me. And I've resisted that because I held on to the ideal that I deserve to be loved, and that God will put people in my life that will love me because we're social creatures. I have a whole philosophy. But I think he's right. And it's a real big shift for me. That waiting, how I've put it in the past is waiting for a miracle. I've been waiting for a miracle. Leonard Cohen talks about that. Other people talk about there's like tarot cards waiting for a miracle.
Myself, and I know that. And this is part of the instruction that I provide. And one could say every day when I don't have the video on, I'm providing it to myself, because the lessons that I have learned already on how to grow and heal and work out traumas, to grieve traumas, to get away from the traumatizing people. This is also instruction for me, a template for me to learn how to continue growing. And in a way, that historical knowledge I have about how.
Just as an aside, this is very minor, but it's almost like I'm finding this with these videos. They're instructions for me. And if I'm helping other people, that's good. But what is like, it's a win-win. So it's interesting. I find rewatching these very helpful to me, which sounds like that's what he's saying.
I've already done it and how much I've changed and how this process actually works. This is my art manual of how to create more art, because.
And at this point, I go, how does this process work? I want the full schedule. How does the process work? And I'll do it, right? It's sort of like I need to step into my life, look at all my situational stuckness, and you tell me what order to do, how this process works.
The new me, I am the art project. I am the art. I am the reservoir of how to create more art. And the other thing is, I see this in other.
It's interesting because I don't know if I want to get personal here. Just very quick. I went to an art school. I considered myself an artist. It's a big part of my story. But one of there's a few things, but was the impracticality of art, or how important is art. And I think I basically adopted that art is sort of icing on a cake thing. It's nice. Maybe it helps us. We listen to music or go watch a play. It's all wonderful and good, but it's not where you're going to make your money necessarily. It's not, if it's sort of not practical, then it's, and then I look back at thousands of years ago, and I'm pretty sure like no one really was making money doing art because they had to do things to survive. And so it's just, and like these are just judgments I have, that art, as much as I would like it to be a fundamental, like, what's the word? Legitimate pursuit. I just sort of feel it's a luxury that because of the modern world, now people can make livings at it. But it's sort of a luxurious. But he's almost making a claim. He's not fully saying it, but he's almost like presupposing or assuming almost that art is fundamental. He's just, that seems to almost be his, he's not even like, he's just assuming that as a foundation, as a fundamental, which I find fascinating. Like, I've heard people, most people will talk about the importance of art, but it's hard, like, to find someone who someone who I trust that isn't full of shit to sort of have the underlying assumption that art is fundamental.
Other people, everyone is an art project to the degree that they are healing and have healed. Many people, I look at them and there's not much that I can learn from them. They don't.
Okay, so he's contingent. He's putting contingent people are art to the degree that they're healed. And he's also sounds like he's contingent upon how useful it, like, can you learn anything?
Have many ways in which they can instruct me, and they certainly don't inspire me. Instead, they're just a reminder of what I don't want and what not to do. In many ways, that's what my parents became for me. They became, I've talked about this, they became negative role models. They became the reminder of, ooh, that's what I don't want to do with my life. That's who I don't want to become. Those are the mistakes not to make as an artist of life. And so I share this art with you in hopes of being more inspirational about the hope of growing, the wonderful things that come from becoming more.
Again, I also can't help but think, like, he's really full of himself to, that this is art. I mean, to me, it seems a bit of a leap. It's like a very, to me, it comes across as an arrogant. Oh, I'm doing art now. It seems like you're stretching the common usage of the word art.
Real. The primary thing being self-love. I love myself more than I ever did, and certainly more than I was ever allowed to love myself as a child. It was not safe to love myself that much or much at all. Now it's like, I love myself. I love my life. I love what I do.
So at this point, this is a running theme, but this point made me want to just feel like this would be the pause point in the video. And I already feel myself sliding away because, yeah, it's amazing. The trauma is so deep. This is where I slide away. Uh, Loving myself. See, I've already sort of forgotten. I'm gonna have to, like, just back up.
I love my relation to myself that much or much at all. Now it's like, to love myself as a child, it was not love. I love myself more than I ever did. And
So it's almost like I need to break this down. I love myself more than I ever did. Like, that is just packed. That's just packed. Because it is like, it seems I didn't love myself, which isn't true. I obviously did love myself. I think he's talking about actively love, not about escaping destruction love. And again, he's already said earlier on that he's claiming he's accomplished a transformation. And I believe him. And so on that, you're building that he's loving himself ever more now. And I don't know, like, what are my feelings? It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming because it's like there's that, it's too raw there. There's too much damage for me to feel this totally.
Certainly more than I was ever allowed.
And then this I love myself. Look at that look on his paused frame there. Furrowed eyebrows anymore. Like, look, that's like more than I was allowed to. I love myself now more than I ever was allowed to. That is just, to me, that's cracking open the vault. If I'm available, I'm not available. I'm not emotionally available. I'm not emotionally available. I love myself now more than I ever was allowed to. That look on his face is just precious. I mean, speaking of art, I almost want to draw this freeze frame as the child that wants to be loved and isn't loved themselves, isn't allowed to, and holds so much rage towards those who are keeping him from loving himself. And then to escape to a point, to live long enough, to survive long enough to do what he should have been allowed to do 40 years ago.
To love myself as a child, it was not safe to love myself.
He's just bringing it, not allowed to. It wasn't safe to love myself. See, I've never said that. I've never said that sentence ever. I said it. Maybe I didn't love. It wasn't safe. All we talking about is not safe. So this is the bringing it back to myself. This is what Daniel's. Bring it back to yourself. Bring it back to yourself. So, second, third, whatever. Not safe to love myself. See, I would have put it not safe to be who I am. That's how I would have put it. Not safe to be, not safe to create, not safe to grow, not safe to be. And maybe that works better for me. Maybe that works better for me than loving myself. I almost feel like not safe to be, like even as I straighten up more, that feels fresher. Not safe to be, as not when I go not safe to love myself, I sort of feel like there's barriers or blockages or something. Whereas when I say not safe to be, that opens me up better than not safe to love myself. It's almost like the act of loving myself implies a sort of deliberate intention to do something, whereas being is just breathing and going where I flow. So that's interesting. There might be more there to look at.
That much or much at all. Now it's like I love myself. I love my life. I love what.
Okay. Even when he said there's a little pause, maybe I'm hearing things that aren't there. There's a little pause. Okay, let's assume it's not there in reality, but let's also assume that I can pretend something else was happening there. This is what was happening there for me. That little hesitation is one of the fundamental lies of my culture, of my people, and of my religion. One of the things drilled in by everyone that mattered: don't be selfish. And that always rubbed me the wrong way. Don't be selfish. And I feel he's sort of having this, he's still having this battle about the moral code. Because don't be selfish says you're not allowed to love yourself. That's basically, that's my take on it. And I feel triggered too in terms of adopting the mores of your perpetrators or whatever. When he's constantly talking about loving himself, I call it a narcissist energy. So full of himself. And it seems also like not acknowledging the importance of being a social human being, a social creature. But I liked how I love myself now. It's like in a prior video, he's talking about overthrowing and consciousness being an overthrowing force, energy. So I like what this did to me hearing this. Basically, I felt in this, it's like giving yourself permission, and it would be better if you didn't have to give yourself permission, but because of, you know, there's this almost required to defer to authority, to give me permission instead of having the freedom to figure out on an intuitive level inside, but giving permission to love myself, that to not worry about the don't be selfish. To me, that, they talk about the golden rule. To me, the golden rule as applied, maybe not as said or preached or spoken of, was don't be selfish. And I always thought that was wrong. And it could be a semantic battle because you could get into what self means and self-care. Oh, there's a difference between self-care and selfish, and I just blah blah, fuck you, blah. Like, I felt selfish was don't have self-care. That was the gist of that dogma. What's the difference? Like, okay, technically selfish is overly concerned about yourself. Daniel is overly concerned about himself. That's my take on it. But I forgive him that because it's the best option. Like, you need to heal sufficiently. He talks about this so that altruism is an overflowing, it's an excess of self-love, which was one of the best definitions I've ever heard in my entire life. I've looked for that my whole life. I went to a chiropractor. He debated me. He was a great guy. He was one of the best people. And he's like, do you think altruism is even possible? And I thought it was sort of a little bit of a pointless exercise, but I wanted to know that, and so altruism being the excess of self-love is such a cool definition that solves a lot of problems potentially. But yeah, so he's overly concerned with himself, but I forgive him of that because he's on a path. I mean, I've said before where I don't forgive him is that he hasn't grown up enough to not be so perfectionist, to not want to have children because he has to be perfect. But all that being said, I liked this. He's overthrowing and claiming his throne almost. Is like, I love myself. He's basically fuck you world, because this is a dangerous thing to say, you know? He's like almost pleading because he still hasn't embodied it maybe or something. Like, I love my, he's sort of like, he can't just, it's like he's got a permission. He knows he's breaking the main golden rule.
What I do, I love my relationships with other people. I can give love. I know how to give love to myself. And now, from a surplus, from the template of loving myself, I know how to be a good person in relationship to others. And I know.
So I'm not there yet. To me, this is like an undiscovered land. This is like, sometimes when I'm in, like, I'm almost, but this one, there's steps for you to get to this point. So yeah.
No, I know that that's what I'm doing because that's not how I was raised to be. And no wonder I was so confused and lost. And now, by knowing how to give more, how to share more, how to be more loving, I get more of that back from the world. I have it reflected back to me. And what a wonderful.
So one of his ideas is that his philosophy seems to be karma. And his philosophy seems to be, don't worry about having kids to take care of you, because if you're sharing your surplus self-love to the world, then it's reflected back to you. And I see that as a theory. I don't know if that's true. I'll have to get there. And to me, it's all that seems like potentially a false hope. So I have a question mark around that
thing. And so as I close this video about art, so much of the art that I see in the world being lost, confused, uninspiring, non-instructive, and sometimes just downright perverse.
Uninspiring, non-constructive, and downright perverse. I don't know. He seems to be. It's interesting because he's an advocate for honoring negativity, quote unquote negativity, but now he's going to make judgments about negative art. So that's interesting. And I do not use the word perverse. That's not my language set. He throws out the word perverse like he's got a real heart. He's got a judgment there using the word perverse. That's not in my vocabulary. And again, so the word I use is sick. I use gross, disturbed. There's a whole bunch of words. I don't use the word perverse. And I think this ties into why he does not comprehend pornography stuff at all. He doesn't seem to comprehend that at all. He seems to really be in the camp of the love addict, the limerence dude.
Think about the art that I will continue to make in my life as I continue to grow, as I continue to become a healthier, less traumatized, more self-actualized person. And I think about the art that other people who are on this process. People who I believe will go much farther than I will ever go, especially if they live in a world where they are accepted more for being who they really are. How much farther can they go?
Okay, this is important. Live in a world where you're accepted for who you are. How much further can you go? Where are my peeps? Where are my peeps? The power of having a group that accepts you for who you are, how far can you go then? And how do I give myself a group that accepts me for who I am? What's the roadmap?
And how much more instructive and inspiring will their art be?
Again, this instructive and instructive, it sounds like a shop class or something. I don't know. Is art supposed to be instructive? What is supposed to be informative? What is like the fucking what news was supposed to be? I don't know, but maybe it is. I'm being instructed here. If he's calling this art, I'm being instructed, but it's almost like you're gerrymandering these words a little bit, but I diverge. So that's I guess basically it. Any wrap up thoughts? No, I mean there's so many things I should be doing in my life. Okay, that's it.